This paper dress conflates two characteristics indicative of 1960s American progress and op art. By the 1960s, young people had more disposable income that fueled an appetite for novelty, which ultimately led to the fashion craze of the paper dress. The design of the dress is a simple two-dimensional A-line dress, but it is the bold, graphic, op art pattern that catches the eye. Op art was popularized in the 1960s. The movement totally eliminated any sort of recognizable object as a subject matter, unlike its sister 1960 movement, pop art, and used instead arrangements of color, line, and shapes, or some combination of these elements, as exemplified by the black and white pattern screen printed onto this paper dress. The pattern is created by black and white rectangular spaces arranged in repeated circular shapes in order to make the dress appear to vibrate and undulate when looked at. You can only imagine how eye-catching this pattern would have been when worn. In fact, the intention of making this dress with paper was that it was meant to be worn once or twice. The invention of mass-produced paper fashion is credited to Scott Paper, an American company that made toilet tissues, baby wipes, and other sanitary products. In 1966, Scott Paper produced these simple disposable shift dresses by using a rayon scrim between two layers of a material called Duraweave, made of a cellulose fiber, a material that was already used to make laundry-reducing garments for medical staff. The dress was available in two patterns, a red paisley and this op art example. Initially, these two were created to be a teaser for a disposable tableware range that Scott Paper was launching. When someone sent $1.25 to Scott Paper, they received one of these dresses in the mail along with coupons for the tableware range. Instead, the dresses became a craze, and over 500,000 orders were received in less than a year. The 1960s were all about progress. It was the space age, and most everything was automated. Paper clothing was appealing because of how convenient it was. No laundry, it could be thrown away after wearing one time. If it needed to be altered, you could hem it with a pair of scissors. The craze ultimately ended in 1968 because paper clothing was not really practical or comfortable. Despite being able to be thrown away, the anti-pollution message from the emerging hippie movement changed public opinion and now seemed wasteful. This paper dress was donated by the former president of the Historical Society of York County, Mimi Brimfield. Ideally, this dress needs to be stored in a temperature and humidity-controlled environment, away from any sources of light, dust, or water. Because this dress is made of cellulose paper material, it isn't necessary to hang it using a padded hanger like most of our other clothing. Storing this paper dress poses interesting issues. It can't be folded up, or it would crease or potentially tear, and storing it flat isn't a possibility because of storage constraints. To reduce the risk of creasing the dress and issues with the space, this dress is going to be rolled around a tube support using acid-free tissue paper. Acid-free tissue paper is an essential housing staple, particularly for the long-term storage of clothing. Acid-free tissue paper is pH neutral at a 6 to 7 on the pH scale, which means that dye, or in this case ink, will not transfer or react to the paper itself. Paper that is made from wood-based pulp that has not had the lignin removed turns yellow, brittle, and will deteriorate over time, and this dress is no exception. When acidic paper is exposed to light and/or heat, it accelerates deterioration even further. As mentioned before, this dress is made of cellulose fibers, and cellulosic materials consist of three major components: cellulose, hemicellulose, and lignin. You can see that the dress has discolored or yellowed over time, likely because of a period of time there was no barrier between the dress itself, and in fact, acidic paper becomes more acidic as it gets older. We are going to create a barrier in between the layers of this dress to prevent any further discoloration. Acid-free tissue paper contains alkalis like calcium and carbonate to neutralize the tissue paper and increase the shelf life. We are going to use this piece of tubing for rolling the dress. The tubing has been covered in several layers of acid-free tissue so that the dress is not exposed to anything harmful in the cardboard tube. The dress is placed on a flat surface on top of a piece of tissue that has some excess. Next, the tube is placed at the end of the tissue and the rolling begins. Once rolled, cotton quill tape is used to tie the roll closed. not too tightly in order to avoid any creasing. The dress is now ready for storage.